Breaking news in Overwatch. We got basically a hotfix patch, let's be honest. I nearly didn't even do a video on this, but we're going to make this super quick. There were a couple of projectile size changes. There was this like big catch-all patch a week ago where it was like, if your projectile was this size, then, you know, we're adding this amount of width to it. If it was this size, we do this, and yada yada yada. Some heroes kind of got broken with that, and their projectile sizes were simply just not a healthy representation, let's put it that way. D.Va's Bunny Blaster, as I call it, the light gun, was one of the issues, and they've brought that back in line again with how it should be. It's still pretty big, but not ludicrously big. Is this a nerf to D.Va? Yes, but it's so, who cares? If you're in fucking Bunny Blaster mode as D.Va, you fucked up already, right? Let me just shoot to the other projectile changes. Hanzo's had his as well, brought back down a little bit. Soldier's had his brought down a little bit as well. Widowmaker has had hers brought down, but also then got a buff to compensate for it. I think Widowmaker was honestly my number one of all of these. I know people are saying Zen, but the headshot hitbox and Widowmaker, if you're going to be the only one-shot headshot primary fire character in the game, I think your primary fire has to be a pretty good representation of... when you fire it needs to give a good representation of the headshot hitbox of the opposing character. I think this was a sensible thing to bring it back into line. And then she's got as a compensation, her damage fall range has been increased. These breakpoint numbers are pretty big, honestly, for some map like Ruins, where Widowmaker used to be the queen. She kind of fell off a little bit, but was still strong. Now there's probably some breakpoints, and I've not gone through all the maps for this, where she might be able to stand on the archway above the mega near your spawn. And this might be in this 70-meter range now. I don't think it's in 50, but it's probably within 70, so... honestly, overall, I think if you're a Widowmaker main, this is a good patch for you, good buff for you. If you're not, this is a nerf for you, right? Because this is going to matter more than this. Anyway, then the other projectile changes with Lucio. That's fine. Honestly, he's in a really strong place right now. His projectile was probably slightly too big. Good change. Nerf, yes. Good change, yes. And I almost riled up the Mercy community by mistake on Twitter, saying that I thought that the Mercy change was going to just be a projectile size change because it was a hotfix, right? They were only ever going to mess around with numbers, not change abilities. I think Mercy needs a little bit of a soft rework to a kit and how it works. Putting it in line with the DPS passive, if you know what I mean. And I don't think you can just put raw number of healing. As a band-aid, you could throw that on there and it'd be fine. But if you give it 20% more healing to compensate with a 20% DPS passive reduction in healing, you're just bringing Mercy back to where she was before. And did I think Mercy was particularly good to where she was before? No. So I think there should be I don't, again, think it should be a big rework like some of the other heroes, like the Sombra. I think it should be more like the Roadhog, where you just maybe tutor her ability very slightly to make her a little bit more of a decision-making character, let's put it that way. Anyway, her Caduceus Blaster was an insane hitbox. I know people, were going oh, it's not really realistic if you're stood in the training range and shooting the bot, and the bot's here, and you're firing over here, and you're getting headshots. Trust me, I played some games off camera. The amount of times where Mercy, I'm here. She breaks out Bunny Blaster. She hits me once here on the kill feed. And then I look at the other shots and one's over here and one's over here and one's up here and one's actually over here somewhere. And I get killed and I'm okay, that was not very satisfying. She just flew directly at me in Valk and was just Caduceus blastering all over the screen. It had to be brought back in line. I know this is a nerf to Mercy. Do I think Mercy's in a good place right now? No, not at all. There needs to be a little bit more something of substantial. So I think it's a good change, but they need to do something to Mercy because she's in a bad state right now. Alright, now we go through to the actual numerical changes on some of the characters, and I said it was a hotfix, so this was all numerical. Hog is more unkillable. That's all I'm going to say about that one. Hog was in a really bad spot. Maybe got demoted to the worst tank because of the DPS passive. Yeah, it was basically that. Now he gets more damage reduction, so he's more likely to get back into cover. Do I think this is a good change? Yes, because he's weak, but no, because I think the rework wasn't very good. Zarya. She has Her primary minimum damage increased from 85 to 95, so her base noodle is a little bit more damaging. And her super noodle is 20 more damage per second more damaging. These are both buffs to Zarya. Zarya was not in a great spot right now. Was Zarya in a completely unplayable spot? I don't think so. I think he could have got it to work on ladder. I think you could even have argued there were some niche cases that you could have seen her played at the Overwatch Champion Series. I think this just increases those niche chances. I don't think it's going to put it into the, I don't think it's going to put a 1, 2, 3 on the tank chart, but it's going to elevate to considerably. That's a lot of damage. And again, it's hard to heal off damage right now, so if you're doing lots and lots of damage, good luck to you. Good luck to your supports. Jay Silly has received some numerical buffs. I'm probably going to receive the most numerical buffs this patch. Cooldown on the concussion mine decreased by 1 second, so 12.5%, right? Has 10 more damage. The minimum damage has been increased by 55, so, okay. The maximum blast radius, if you hit someone center, it's going to do 120. If you hit someone on the edge, it's going to do 55. These were both buffs to Junkrat. Will Junkrat see play? No! Because he's a small, waddly character who doesn't have a lot of good utility. And I still don't think, with the 120 damage, you can do your 2-shot combo, right? I'm pretty certain if you hit someone with a mine and a pipe, it doesn't kill most squishy, so this is somewhat irrelevant. All it does now, again, is reward the Junkrat from spamming mines into groups of people, willy-nilly, and they'll get more value, they'll build riptires faster, and they'll get some accidental kills. I think this patch change is pretty woeful for Junkrat. I'm going to say maybe a controversial opinion. I don't think all heroes should be meta. I know Junkrat mains, they're in tears right now. The character has been pretty dead for some time. I'm not saying, good, but I don't think Junkrat is one of those characters that should be meta everywhere. I think he should be a niche pick on certain maps with chokes. One of the things that's hurting Junkrat the most right now is there's not actually that many maps with very hard chokes throughout the map. This used to be like a characteristic of 2CP. You remember 2CP way back in the day? Where Junkrat did actually see some play on stuff like Anubis. The only map now that has such a super tight choke is, or I'd argue, is Control Center, right? And you do very occasionally see Junkrat in Control Center. So as much as, you can twiddle these numbers, he's going to feel really bad to play against if you just reward him spamming people. Another character, and I think they are talking about this, who should be up for a rework. And actually, I don't think this should be a soft one. I think this should be a hard one to change the kit pretty extensively, because the character's not in a good spot right now. And sure, eventually, if you just kept pushing the numbers higher and higher, Junkrat would become meta. Is that a good thing, though? Probably not. Anyway, Soldier we talked about, it's a projectile size change. Tracer has turned out to be one of the big winners of the last patch. As much as she takes more damage because of the increased projectile size of all projectiles, she was outputting disgusting amounts of damage herself. So I think she kind of broke, in my personal opinion, some people disagree with this, I think she kind of broke even through the patch. But some of the other contenders got heavily nerfed from it, like Sojourn got pretty heavily nerfed from it. And it just made Tracer then suddenly feel like the only DPS pick. With the DPS passive though as well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe she got a slight buff with that as well. But anyway, they've increased the fall-off range, which actually kind of surprised me. I thought they were going to go for a DPS. But no, she has to get close to people. Honestly, that might do it, but I don't think it's going to. We'll see. We'll see. It is a pretty big change, It's a... what is it, right? It's like 18%. Yeah, it's 18%, right? The fall-off range has been reduced by... So you have to get close to people. The closer you get as Tracer, the more damage you take, the more damage you take, the more likely you have to just pop and die. Yeah, I think it's going to be noticeable, but I still think this hero is going to be real strong. But yeah, nerf overall. We talked about Widowmaker's scope shot increases. I think... Oh, Zenyatta is the other one. Illaria also got some buffs. Her healing pile on the cooldown got decreased from 8 to 6. That's 25%. That's a huge change. And when it's destroyed, it goes from 15 to 12 seconds. So that's, 3 seconds off 15. That's a fifth. That's 20%, right? Quick math. Huge. makes the healing pylon way, way stronger. Her ultimate also got improved. Does 160 damage now on the explosion. So if you get to trigger the explosion, they take more damage, which makes sense. It brings it more in line with the health boosts, because Illaria honestly maybe got hit the most from this patch. We talk about like the single target healing from Mercy and Lifeweaver. This character was just fucking absolutely destroyed by the last patch, because none of like her damage numbers were changed. And also her ultimate now has a damage fall off again, reducing damage by up to 25%. Sure. So this chain reaction is a little bit less good, I suppose, to compensate for the fact that he does 60 more damage on a single target. Do I think this is going to make a blind bit of difference to Illaria? Yes, but no. I think it's obviously a just flat out buff, right? If you like Illaria, you'll be able to get more value from Illaria right now. The problem with Illaria is she's still absolutely fucked over by the DPS passive, which means that she kind of has to be played as this dueling, flanking, pseudo DPS character that occasionally, you know, if they are aggressed upon, she can use her healing pylon or her healing beam to put people back into the green on health. Unfortunately, that is still in a bad spot right now because the DPS passive, as I just alluded to. So as a healing support, a healing is just not going to be there. And I don't think a utility is necessarily good enough. And I don't think an ultimate is necessarily good enough. Like, if you compare Captive Sun to, I don't know, Trank, Beat, hell, even Coalescence right now. And Coalescence is not in a great spot, but you build this thing really, really quickly. Captive Sun, I don't think you necessarily build this pretty quickly. You're not guaranteed to get kills off it. I think it's a pretty weak ultimate, just full stop. You kind of want to combine it with other things. I just think Illaria is going to be in an awkward spot. The other thing about her is, like, if you want to have this flanking DPS dueling support, you just play Kiriko, right? She has got a way better escapability than her... God, what's it always called? The circle of jumpiness. I forgot what it's called. But just teleporting is better than that. She has better utility in the Suzu. Her healing isn't as good as Illaria, I will concede that, but her damage output and her kill threat in this, if that's a word, is probably higher than Illaria. So I think overall, you know, definitely buff. If you like Illaria, you'll get more value from Illaria. But I don't think it'll matter at the highest levels. This character is just so easily dove upon. She's just so fragile. And if you dive upon anyone else, and I think most of the time when you're going to play Illaria, you're probably going to play a split comp as like a 3 and a 2, and your Illaria and a DPS will go off on 1. Very good. Illaria and a DPS will go off on one angle. Then your DPS, other support, and this support will have to be pretty self-sustaining, has to go off on the other angle, and then your tank will sort of be like, maybe they'll play as the 1, sometimes they'll play here, sometimes it'll go here as the 3 instead. They'll be a bit more fluid about it. Still with the DPS passive changes, if someone goes on this DPS, you're going to struggle to heal them back up with your beam and your pylon, so there's a lot of counterplay to play Kiriko. That's kind of her issue. We went through the projectile size, changing to Mercy and Lucio, so we get to finally Zenyatta. I thought Zenyatta was going to get a change to the projectile size as well. He didn't, which is kind of interesting. He did lose 25 health. Notice it was health, not barriers, so that is a bit of a pain to Zenyatta. He's definitely a more readily diveable target than he was before. He was pretty readily diveable before. And the knockback on snap kick has been decreased, which, again, this was a really good tool against dive. Like, Winston jumped on you kicked him in the face, it would break the gap of the fall off of the zapper. And by fall off, I mean, like, it just couldn't reach you anymore. You were out of range. Now that is less likely to happen. I think that's a good thing. I think snap kick being added to Zenyatta was actually overall just a downside. I think it was kind of a stupid ability to give him. I don't think it was really in keeping with the character. I'm kind of surprised they've still kept it, and they've given it an icon now, so it suggests they're going to keep it long term. But yeah, I think this is going to hurt Zenyatta a lot. Now, you may have watched a video previous to me, and I said this was going to be volatile anyway because of the patch, in part, where teams were playing Ball, Tracer, other DPS, Echo. I'm not writing all these down, but it was like Echo Sombra, type things, sometimes Soldier. And then people were running Lucio and Zen. Just before this patch dropped, I had been paying attention to some of the EU scrims, and I was also watching some of the Korean Overwatch contenders. This comp actually got countered pretty hard, and Zen was actually dropped from this comp basically entirely, and people started running Kiriko instead. In Korea, they were running Doom here instead. I noticed in the EU some people are running Winston now. I've noticed some people are running Moira here as well, so that you can go towards a pseudo-hybrid dive, which is like a bit of a rush with it. Because then if you need to swap the Winston, you can go to the Ramattra and play Ram Rush. By the way, Ram Rush, really strong still, it turns out. Really strong. So, yeah, it was a bit unfortunate timing on the Zen, and it was kind of like, I know they're doing this hotfix patch, but like, be very careful with Zen, because of all the heroes in the game that you can like make counter strats for, Zen is like one of the high ones to counter him. And as I said, after a few days of the patch, people were countering this comp pretty readily. And yeah, he eventually got dropped. He just couldn't survive through dives. Like, people were in just pure unadulterated dives with Winston, Tracer, Sombra, Lucio Moira dive, or Lucio Kiriko dive, and the Zen just couldn't live upon transition. So I think Zen probably deserved a nerf. I don't think it should have been a heavy nerf. I don't think this is the world's biggest nerf, so hopefully just leave it like this. I'm a little bit worried they'll come back and get the projectile size afterwards. I don't think the projectile size would be a bad thing, but I wouldn't have also included that with a health drop. So if they come back and like try and refine the projectile size, I'd like them to give him some health back again. Even if it's not the full 25, it might be something stupid like they just give him 15 health back, or they give him 15 barrier, just to compensate for it. Because Zenyatta is in this position right now where I don't think he is Giga OP, as some people have been saying on Twitter. I think he was above average in terms of strength. This has brought him back towards the average. I think any more than this, though, he would drop him like below average as a character. So that's my opinion on the patch. Let me know what you think, and we'll look out for some more in the near future, because I think this will not be the final hotfix. Anyway, thanks for watching, and goodbye.